I'm Sheila from Different Strokes, and welcome to the latest in our 2023 webinar series. If you've attended one previously, it's good to see you again, but if this is your first time, it's fantastic to have you with us. We're running these sessions every few weeks this year, so please keep an eye on our website and socials for details of future sessions, and please do let us know if there's any topics you would like us to cover. Today, we're joined by our CEO, Willett, who's going to give you some updates about what we're doing in the future with Different Strokes. But first, some housekeeping. The session is being recorded, but no details of anyone watching are being captured, and the only people, I should say, that will appear on camera are myself and Austin. There's also a chat function, which some of you have started using. Please do use this to say hello to us all and to post any general comments. There's also a separate Q&A function, so if you've got any questions, please use this specifically for the questions, because if you put questions in the chat, we might not pick them up. We've already received some questions in advance, and time permitting, we'll cover as many of these as possible, and any that come through while the session is running. And now I'm delighted to introduce to you Willett.
Thank you very much, Sheila. Thanks for the introduction. And it's fantastic to see so many people joining us this morning. Really appreciate the time. What I'd like to do this morning is just talk you through a little bit about Different Strokes, what we've been working on over the past 6 or 12 months or so. And also some of the new initiatives that we've got coming up over the next 6 months or so. Now, broadly speaking, we have 3 main areas of work at Different Strokes. Firstly, to deliver the best possible services that we can to stroke survivors. Secondly, to raise awareness, and that's both raising awareness of Different Strokes, the charity, and raising awareness of younger stroke, and particularly getting the message out there that stroke affects people of all ages. And the third area of our work is everything around administration, fundraising, human resources, really all of those building blocks and those foundations that it's essential for us to have in place to ensure that we can meet our first 2 objectives. And what I'm going to do is just take you through each of these 3 areas in turn and kind of talk you through kind of what we've been working on and so forth. So first of all, to look at the services that we offer at Different Strokes. Probably the biggest thing that we do here at Different Strokes is our online support group. Many of you on this call this morning may well be members of our private Facebook group. This group has more than 7,000 members now. And it's a fantastic way for stroke survivors to be able to engage with each other, to receive peer support from each other, to be able to ask advice in particular areas, to be able to share issues of concern that may be to people, but also, and equally importantly, to be able to share successes. And we find that this group's a very, very upbeat, positive group where people do share their success stories. And it's a fantastic opportunity for stroke survivors to be able to engage with each other. We being the staff of Different Strokes, we monitor and we facilitate this group. Although having said that, we find that the brilliant thing about this group is it's very, very much self-regulating. And it's only really a limited number of occasions that we may have to step in as the charity if, for example, the house rules have been broken. I would just like to explain briefly in terms of us monitoring this group. We obviously look at this very closely and monitor it constantly during working hours. We are a small charity, so it would be unfeasible for us to have the resources to be monitoring this feed 24/7. But of course, being an online group, it is available there 24/7 for people to be able to post on that. But what we do, as well as monitoring this during working hours, is we do have a check-in service at the weekend, where once or twice a day on Saturdays and Sundays, one dedicated staff member will check into a group just to see if there's anything significant that needs our immediate involvement in there. But please do bear in mind that the service that we run out of hours is certainly not the service that we run during working hours. So it may be, for example, if you make a posting, on a Friday evening, you may well not get an answer till Monday morning, for example, because, we only run that, brief check-in service during the weekends, and we're certainly not able to monitor that constantly during this time. Other things in terms of what we do online are, for the last couple of years, introduced during COVID, we do online networking sessions. Again, I believe a few of you on this call now may well have joined these networking sessions, which are run by Sheila. We introduced these when, for obvious reasons during COVID, our face-to-face groups, our local groups, weren't able to meet, but we still wanted to provide the opportunity for stroke survivors to get together, to talk to each other, to provide peer support to each other. And so we do this through these networking sessions, which we run every couple of weeks. They don't have any formal agenda at all, and it's just an opportunity for people, to come along and to talk with other stroke survivors about whatever issues are on their minds. And another strand of our online activities is obviously what we're doing today, this webinar. We've run a whole series of webinars this year. We've had talks from stroke survivors. We've had yoga for stroke survivors. We've had talks on functional electrical stimulation, on work after stroke, on falls prevention. And we'll be doing more of these webinars going forward, as it's a great way for us to be able to talk to you about a whole range of issues across the whole stroke pathway. What I've covered so far, of course, is all the services that we've been providing online, but it's not just online services that we provide. And traditionally, for the last 20-25 years plus, we've had a whole network of local groups up and down the country. Our numbers of groups are a little bit less now than they have been in previous years, mainly due to the fact that some groups didn't reopen after COVID. But having said that, we've got 30 really active groups up and down the country. And I'm really pleased that in the last 6 months or so, we've had 3 new groups open in Diss in Norfolk, in Whitstable in Kent, and Burton-on-Trent in Staffordshire. And big thank you to all our group coordinators for helping to establish this three new groups. If there is a group in your local area that you'd like more details about, please do either contact that group directly, or if you're not sure of their details, please do contact us directly and we'll be able to forward your information on. Similarly, if you're in an area which doesn't have a local group, but you might be interested in starting one up, please do contact us and we'll be very happy to have a chat with you about that and everything that it entails. One of the major things that we're working on this year is updating our children's resource packs. Some of you on the call may be familiar with this. These are resources which are written in age-appropriate language to help children better understand after their mum or dad has had a stroke. And we have materials that, broadly speaking, cover 3 age ranges, roughly 3 to 6, 7 to 11, 12 to 17. We first brought these packs in 2010, and during that time we've had fantastic feedback from both families and healthcare professionals alike, saying how valuable these packs have been and valuable for children and families. But they're 13 years old now, and so we feel the time is right for them to be updated. We're currently renewing the information in at the moment, updating them, just making them a little bit more modern now. My colleague Janice is doing a fantastic job, supported by our marketing manager Lauren, at producing these packs. We're very grateful to a couple of corporate supporters for sponsoring the new packs as well. And we're hopeful that they will all be in place around October, November time, but we'll then have the brand new children's resource packs in place. And one other area of work in terms of our services that I just want to touch on briefly is our BAS work. BAS stands for Black and Asian Stroke Survivors. This work came out of a recognition from us at Different Strokes that we traditionally have supported disproportionately few people from Black and Asian communities compared to the numbers of Black and Asian people who have had a stroke at a younger age. And this is something that we're determined to correct this imbalance. So we've identified a number of barriers why this is the case. It is a complicated issue, but as a result of identifying these barriers, we were delighted last year to recruit Rahal, who herself had a stroke aged 22, and she's come in as our BAS project officer. And Rahal's been doing a great job over the last 9 months or so of helping to raise awareness of this issue, of helping to promote our services within Black and Asian communities and beyond. So that's a little bit about the services that we provide. And I'd like to move on now to talk about promoting the charity and raising awareness of what we do. We, under our marketing manager, Lauren, who's been with us 6 or 7 years now, and all the time that she's been here, she's done a fantastic job at ensuring that we, as a charity, have a higher profile, having a very active, regularly updated website, ensuring that we're very active on social media, and really ensuring that many more people know about Different Strokes and that we're here. But building on that, over the last year or so, we've also tried to get a greater footprint within the mainstream media. And so therefore, in the last 12 months, we've had a number of stories about stroke survivors which have been in national press and in local press, on various news online sites as well, really highlighting stories of younger stroke survivors. There's been particular issues around misdiagnosis of younger stroke, which we've managed to get quite a lot of publicity for as well. And this obviously all helps to get the message out there, not only that stroke happens to people of all ages, but the dangers of stroke being misdiagnosed as well, which hopefully will improve things in the long run. We've been on various television stations, such as we've been on BBC Breakfast, BBC South, BBC East Midlands. I've been fortunate enough to appear on BBC Radio 5 Live 3 times. And certainly the highlight of this was around the end of May, when there was an hour-long special about younger stroke on the Radio 5 Live on Nihal's show in the afternoon. That goes out each afternoon on Radio 5 Live, which I appeared on with 2 fantastic young stroke survivors. We work with Lily and Ailish. So it's fantastic to have that opportunity to talk to a national audience about what we do and about younger stroke in general. And certainly we'll be looking to do much more media work going forward. Something else that's an important part of us in terms of really increasing awareness of Different Strokes is working closely with the ISDNs. Now, ISDN stands for Integrated Stroke Delivery Network. These were introduced in England 2 years ago in May 2021. And there are 20 ISDNs across England, so each of them in a particular region, which is responsible for stroke services in their local area. A key part of the ISDN is to have a patient and public voice panel. So this will be a panel of stroke survivors, of carers, of other interested members of the public who are able to feed into the decision-making process. And so we've been working closely with the ISDNs and these panels to ensure that the voice of younger stroke has been heard within that. And how we've done this is we've recruited a network of volunteer ambassadors. So we now have a number of volunteer ambassadors across the country, many of whom are working closely with their local ISDN, perhaps sitting on the patient and public voice panel and really ensuring that the voice of younger stroke is heard. This has been going very well. There's certainly a very real willingness of the people who run the ISDNs to want to engage with us, want to engage with different strokes, want to engage with stroke survivors and bring the voice of lived experience into their work. Having said that, we don't have every single area covered across England. So if you are potentially interested in a volunteer ambassador role, and in particular, if you live in the areas of Lancashire and Cumbria, Manchester, Kent, or Frimley and Surrey, would be really pleased to talk to you, because these are our priority areas at the moment for looking to recruit new volunteer ambassadors. So there's a lot that we've been working on at different strokes, and there's a lot that we'll continue to be working on going forward. But of course, to do all this work and to provide all the activities and the promotional work that we do, this contains significant resources. We've always been a relatively small staff team, and our staff, do a fantastic job and are multi-skilled at juggling an awful lot of areas at the same time. Now, first and foremost, to run our services, we need to be bringing funds into the organisation. We receive no funds from central government or local government. So every single penny that we have and that we spend at different strokes, we have to raise from various sources. And typically we would raise these from individual donations, perhaps through monthly direct debits, through grants from charitable trusts and foundations, through corporate support, and through fundraising events, such as people doing a sponsored run, perhaps. What we've really tried to do in recent years is get funds in from as many different sources as possible, so that we're not too over-reliant on any one individual source, but know that we have the fallback of other areas of income if one particular part of our income suffers a bit of a downturn. But one of the most essential things that we do is fundraising through events, and as well as individuals taking part in, as I mentioned, maybe a run or a half marathon, for example, we do a number of events ourselves each year. We do March On each March. We've just done a firewalk a couple of weeks ago, which was really successful. And then each September we do an abseil. And we do our abseil down the orbit in the Olympic Park in London. This normally takes place each September, and I believe this is probably the 6th year now that we've been running this event. And it's really an absolutely fantastic event to help to raise funds for different strokes through people doing sponsored abseil. But it's an event that's about so much more than just the fundraising element of it, because the vast majority of people who do the abseil will be stroke survivors themselves, and it's a fantastically empowering event. And so many stroke survivors, which is more than 100 now, who've done the abseil, have said that it was just such a fantastic event, for them to do and for this to undertake this challenge. So we're running the event this year on Saturday, the 9th of September. We've got a number of spaces left still, so if you're interested in taking part in this event and doing a sponsored abseil, it'd be absolutely fantastic to hear from you, and please do contact us. As well as for funds, of course, we rely on staff that we need to make sure that we can deliver our work. And I'm really pleased that we're currently in the process of recruiting 3 new staff members, which we're really pleased about. So we've just recruited Mandy, who's our regional coordinator for Hampshire. Mandy started with us a couple of weeks ago, and she has taken over from our previous coordinator for Hampshire, Liz. Liz did a fantastic job in the year or so that she worked with us, and I know that Mandy's going to do a great job building on the work that Liz has done in terms of raising awareness of younger stroke within the Hampshire and broader Wessex area. And we've also got 2 new staff positions come in that we're able to find the funds to create these 2 new positions. And Helen and Mez will be starting with us in a couple of weeks' time. Helen will be joining us as an administrator. She's a really experienced administrator and office manager. And she'll be a fantastic support to the rest of the team in terms of undertaking various office and administration tasks, and also helping myself and other senior members of the team with the administration parts of our workload, which hopefully will help to free up a little bit more of our time to be working on other aspects of service delivery. In addition to Helen, we have Mez who will be starting with us. Mez will be working as our marketing assistant. She'll be working very closely with Lauren. Lauren has done such a great job marketing and promoting the charity in recent years, but her workload has expanded to beyond what she's able to do herself now in her working hours. So we're really pleased that Mez will be joining us to support Lauren in her work and supporting the charity overall with all our marketing and promotional activities. So I'd just like to end by talking about some of the things that we've got coming up at different strokes in the next 3 to 6 months. And there's 3 areas here that I would like to touch on. Firstly, this October, we will be running 2 face-to-face events. We haven't run any face-to-face events since 2019, since before COVID. And over the last 3 years, what we've done instead is have a whole virtual conference over a week in the autumn, where we've had a series of webinars. And these 3 conferences, virtual conferences that we've run, have all been successful. But we really felt quite strongly this year that the time was right to get stroke survivors back together again, to get stroke survivors, in the same room so that we could talk and engage people directly. And therefore, with arrange these 2 events. We'll be having one close to Reading on Saturday the 7th of October and another in Sheffield on Saturday the 14th of October. And tickets for these have just gone on sale in the last 24 hours. So you'll be able to, so the booking is through Eventbrite, but if you go via our website, you'll be able to see all the information on the day and a link to the booking form as well. We've got keynote speakers at both days. We'll be having a few of our commercial partners will be coming along with their exhibition stands to showcase products and services that support stroke survivors. We'll also be having some facilitated discussions on particular areas of interest to people as well. But most of all, and most importantly, we'll just be ensuring that there's plenty of time for stroke survivors just to be able to talk to each other, to be able to meet face-to-face again and have those conversations and that face-to-face interaction, because obviously it's been quite some time since we've been able to do this. And the second thing that we'll be looking at over the next few months is our online exercise sessions and doing a little bit of a review of these. We introduced online exercise back in May 2020 during the early days of COVID, when with groups not being able to meet, we felt it was really important that we were able to provide online appropriate exercise for stroke survivors. And we've worked with some fantastic exercise instructors over the years who've delivered these sessions. And what we've done, what you're probably aware of, is that we pitched the exercise sessions at 5 different levels, Monday to Friday, with different levels of intensity, so that a stroke survivor, no matter what their physical condition, there should be a level which was appropriate for them. And we then spent 2.5 years putting sessions out, new sessions out, week in, week out, Monday to Friday. Last year, towards the end of last year, we decided to change it up a bit. And instead of just doing sessions, new sessions every single day, we decided that we'd put a structured program in place, a structured program that lasted over 12 weeks. So for each of the 5 levels, we had a structure of 12 sessions taking through effectively almost like a bit of an exercise course for people to do at each level. And we premiered these between last October to December. And all those sessions, so this bank of 60 exercise sessions now, ever since then, has all been available on our our YouTube page for anyone who wants to be able to undertake the exercise program there. But having done that, we felt that we just needed to have a bit of a pause and consider what's the best way we can do with exercise going forward. Is it to produce similar sessions? Is it to produce shorter clips, maybe on very specialist areas? Is it to work with other instructors and maybe do exercise in a little bit of a different way? And these are all things that we need to take the time to consider. So over the next few months, we'll be looking to review our exercise sessions and then decide, how and if we may want to move forward with them. And just the final thing that we've got coming up, just to provide a little bit of a heads up on, is that in the forthcoming months, we will be looking at introducing some kind of bursary program. Now, how this has come about is we had a reasonably sized donation from a private individual a few months ago. And he mentioned to us that when he had his stroke, it was very, very important for him post-stroke to undertake rehabilitation activities to really help him recover. But he was conscious that he had the financial means to undertake this private rehabilitation, which many stroke survivors don't. And when he gave us this donation, this got us thinking, well, with some of the funds that he's given us, it would be nice if we can introduce some kind of bursary scheme so that stroke survivors that lack the financial means for post-stroke rehabilitation, but where that post-stroke rehabilitation would be very, very helpful to them, of looking to provide a bit of a fund for people to do that. Now, I think it's fair to say at this stage, there's a lot of detail to be worked out in terms of what the process would be for people applying, what kinds of things might be available for individual stroke survivors. So there's certainly a lot of detail we'll be needing to work out in the next few months. But in principle, we've taken this decision that we will be introducing this fund, and we'd hope that that will be live probably from around New Year, around January 2024, I would think. So I hope that everything that I've covered this morning has been of interest, and it's just given people a flavour of kind of what we've been doing and what we've got coming up. And Sheila, obviously, if we've had any questions come in, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Austin. We have had a couple of questions submitted before today's event. I've got one here that's got quite a few strings to it.
Okay.
So what is a mini stroke? What things cause mini stroke and cause a major stroke? And what symptoms of a stroke should you look out for in yourself and others?
Okay. So, a mini stroke is often called a TIA, which stands for transient ischemic attack. And a TIA is a temporary disruption in blood supply to part of the brain. The thing with a TIA is the effects of this will probably only last a short time. It may be as short as a few minutes, it could be a few hours. But to all intents and purposes, within 24 hours, an individual will probably be back to normal again after a TIA. However, the really essential thing with the TIA is it's really important that you seek urgent medical advice. I'd recommend it that anyone who does have a TIA, to calls 999 and gets taken to the appropriate centre to be assessed, because, a TIA could lead on to something significantly worse at a future point. So it's really important that if someone has a TIA, but they don't just dismiss it because within 24 hours later the symptoms have disappeared, but they, that they do seek urgent medical advice for that. I think part of the question was about the symptoms as well, wasn't it, Sheila?
Yes.
Yeah. So the symptoms of a stroke and a TIA are pretty much the same. a good starting point is FAST, and everyone will be familiar with FAST because there's been a number of kind of public awareness campaigns around this. So this is where F stands for face, is the face drooping on one side. A for arms, if you have difficulty raising your arms. S for slurred speech, and T for time, and really the importance in getting urgent medical attention as soon as possible. FAST will not capture 100% of strokes, so it will capture probably about 75 to 80% of strokes, but there are some other symptoms to be aware of, such as extreme dizziness, significant vision problems as well, and problems with your eyes, and problems with balance. So these are other symptoms that it's important to be aware of beyond FAST. And then I think the third part of your question was about what things cause a major stroke and a mini stroke. Is that correct, Sheila?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yes. Again, it's pretty much the same answer for both a major stroke and a mini stroke. There are a number of causes of a stroke. In younger people who we support, often, that stroke may be caused by an undiagnosed medical condition. So for example, it might be caused by a PFO, which is a hole in the heart. So we have to recognize that, sad to say as it is, not all strokes are preventable. Because if you've got an undiagnosed medical condition, you may not be aware of that until the point that you have a stroke. Having said that, a lot of strokes, and particularly as people get older, strokes are caused by lifestyle issues. And here, the most important thing here is, as with some other medical conditions, is just the importance of leading a healthy lifestyle. The fact is, if you smoke, if you drink a lot, if you take illegal drugs, if you don't exercise, if you're significantly overweight, all of these things are going to increase your risk of having a stroke.
Thank you for that, Austin. Okay, moving on to another question now. What are the areas where different strokes cooperates with a stroke association, and where are their complementary activities, and where are their turf wars?
Turf wars. Interesting way of putting it. I suppose the best way I can answer it. We have a good relationship with the Stroke Association, first and foremost. And what I wouldn't want to do is give the impression that in these areas here, we get on really well and work really, really closely and do exactly the same thing. And in these areas here, we're in competition with each other, and we're having kind of a bit of a turf war, about various things, because that's not really how our relationship with the Stroke Association works. There's a limited amount that we do with the Stroke Association in terms of, right, this is a joint program we're going to run together, for example. It's not that we sit down with the Stroke Association on a regular basis and do joint planning of programs and activities, because that's not how our relationship works. But what we do is, where we have areas in common, we have an awful lot of areas in common, is that we'll cooperate with them very closely in that, because ultimately we're all on the same side. We are all on the same side as, wanting, to support stroke survivors. So an area such as the ISDNs, for example, the Integrated Stroke Delivery Networks, there will be patient and public voice panels on that, which will have an individual from different strokes in there, which will have individuals from the Stroke Association on there, you know, and they will be working together and working on the same side and working quite closely in that area. Only yesterday, I was on a Zoom call with one of the ISDN areas that's planning a major conference from last year, and they were wanting, you know, advice in terms of the content of that content. So I was on the call from different strokes. There was a couple of people from the Stroke Association on there, and again, what we were inputting into that was quite similar. So those are areas that we work together. There are also areas where we maybe at different strokes we're not directly involved in, but we would be supportive of. So, for example, the Stroke Association have been running a campaign over the last year or so called Saving Brains, to do with thrombectomy rates and the need to increase thrombectomy rates. Now, this is an area that we wouldn't get involved with directly because our focus is very much on rehabilitation and life after stroke. Our focus is not on what happens at the, you know, in an acute setting. But we're obviously fully supportive of this. So although we're not directly involved with that campaign, we'll help to promote that. You know, we'll put information out about that on our socials, asking for people to support it. And then there's areas that we just, you know, don't, you know, where we just kind of get on and do our own thing. So, for example, our conferences that we're doing, you know, and get-togethers we're doing in October, that's nothing to do with the Stroke Association. That's a different strokes event. So there wouldn't particularly be the need for us to have any kind of conversation with the Stroke Association about that. But the one thing that I would stress is we work with them closely in some areas, not so closely in other areas, but we get on well. And I can't recall really the last time we had a major disagreement with the Stroke Association, because at the end of the day, we're all on the same side.
Thank you. Right, here's one for you. Please tell us any initiatives that Different Strokes has to support Scotland and Wales, what initiatives for England, and what initiatives for the whole of the UK. And just to add an extra one in there, why are all the ISDNs in England and not in Scotland and Wales as well?
Okay, right. So to take the second part of that question first, the ISDNs have been created by NHS England. So, you know, you have NHS England and NHS Scotland, and it's up to the various devolved parts of the UK for, you know, how they want to arrange their own stroke services. England have gone down the route of ISDNs. In other parts of the devolved nations, they may be going down a slightly different path for that. I can't really comment on the reasoning behind that. In terms of our work, the vast majority of what we do is UK-wide. Our Facebook online support group is UK-wide. All our online activity, all our promotional activity, you know, is obviously UK-wide, as are our webinars, as are our networking sessions. Our networking sessions, I know, on occasion are a little bit more than UK-wide. I know there's someone from America who attends them quite regularly. So all of that work that we do is UK-wide. The production of, you know, our BAS work, our children's resource thing, you know, all of that. The work that we do, which is not UK-wide, is the work where we tend to work with healthcare professionals. And that's because of the way that the healthcare system is structured and the fact that it's different in different parts of the UK. So I can't really work with the NHS, for example, on a UK-wide basis, because it will all be devolved to the nations. So with the ISDN, that work, you know, is across, you know, with the ISDNs, the work is across England. And the reality is, to be completely honest about it, the majority of our work is with England, purely based on the fact that you know, approximately 90% of the UK population is in England. So that will have the vast focus of our work where we work with the NHS will be focused on England. But to reiterate, you know, the majority of the activities that we provide, you know, are UK-wide.
Thank you. How can stroke care be improved and the consistency of care improved?
This is both an extremely complicated answer and an extremely simple answer. The complicated part of this is there is not a magic wand. There's not, you know, one easy single thing that will mean that stroke care is, you know, suddenly massively improved. You know, because to make improvements, you have to look at the whole stroke care pathway. And that starts off with what can be done to prevent stroke, what can be done to mean that less people are having strokes, what can be done to better diagnose stroke, what can be done about improving acute care, what can be done about rehabilitation, what can be done about ongoing life after stroke. So, you know, there's so many strands that go into that. Having said that, the more simple part of the equation is the biggest challenge facing us at the moment is NHS workforce. More than 50% of stroke units in the UK have at least one vacancy for a stroke consultant that they can't fill. And there really are very, very acute challenges within the NHS around workforce at the moment, not just in stroke, but you know, across the whole of the NHS. So that to me would be the number one thing that we really need to see improved. Unfortunately, that it is beyond my control to be able to affect, you know, the level of the NHS workforce, and all we can really do at Different Strokes is just keep shouting about younger stroke, you know, working with the NHS institutions where we're able to do so, you know, to ensure that, you know, stroke, and particularly younger stroke, continues to have a high profile.
Okay, thank you. Next one. Very little's ever said about brain hemorrhage as a type of stroke. Can you give some information about this and highlight the challenges of this particular kind of stroke?
The short answer, sadly, is probably no. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a medical professional, and it's not a specific area that I'm particularly familiar with in terms of particular aspects of it. So I'm sorry, I can't help on this occasion with that one.
Okay, and we've got one here. What initiatives are aimed at support of those stroke warriors who are the family of survivors? This person here is that family carers don't have access to basic training.
Right. I'm just trying to. Can you just repeat that, Sheila? I'm just trying to get an idea what question's actually being asked here.
What initiatives aimed at support of those stroke warriors who are families of survivors?
Okay, so we're looking at, okay, so if the question's asking about what support is available to family members and carers, perhaps?
I think so, yes.
Okay. This is an area we would like to do more in. We obviously our Facebook group is available to family members and close family members of stroke survivors, and we know of a number of people who use that group and have found that a big support. And also, in addition to that, a number of our local groups, often family members will go along to that and get a little bit of support from each other as well. It is an area we would like to do more on. I would hope that at some point in the next few years, we may have a specialist support service available for carers. But I do have to be honest, I can't give any guarantees about that because it all depends what resources we have available. And up to this point, we haven't had the resources to enable us to do this. I would like to think, though, we may be able to do a little bit more on that. In the meantime, as I said, we do have our Facebook group, where carers can get support from each other there. And we do, of course, have things like the children's resource packs, which we know have been, really great support for where, stroke has affected a family that has young children there.
Okay, well, that's us coming to the end of our webinar today. So sorry if we didn't get a chance to cover your question, but if you've got any questions, either something you wanted answered now or you think of in the meantime, email us on info@differentstrokes.co.uk, and we'd be very happy to answer anything that we can answer, bearing in mind we're not medical professionals. We'd also be grateful for your feedback for the webinar today. So if you can please stay online after the session ends to complete the feedback form. It's very simple. It should take no more than 2 minutes to complete. That would be fantastic. The next webinar will be on Friday, the 4th of August, and this webinar is sponsored by MindMaze. And further details will be available on the website by Monday at the latest. So have a look there and hopefully you'll sign up to that session. Once again, many thanks to you, Austin, and many thanks to you all for joining us. Thank you.